Race 2 is about to get underway for the MX-5 Super Series. We're going to rate 15 magnificent looking Mark III Mazdas. Josh Jackson won the first race, so obviously he's on pole. But this is the man here to watch, Simon Orange. He blew his diff on the first lap of the first race, and he should make up some places. And Lyndsay, where's he going to finish?
I kind of predict, looking at who we've got out there on the grid at the moment, I reckon he's going to jump up right to about mid-park. I'd like to see him in about P8.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to say 7.
Oh, 7?
Yeah.
Oh no, definitely going to be 8. I don't reckon he's going to have the ones looking up at the front. I don't think he's going to be able to jump that high, but you could prove me wrong.
We never know. So with that, let's see how it all pans out. Andy, over to you.
Thanks very much, guys. So the cars line up on the grid and we'll watch with interest how Simon Orange gets on. The grid is the result from race 1, so it's Jackson and Bailey row 1, Richard Breedley and Paul Sheard row 2, and Sam Bailey and George Grant on the 3rd row, with Simon Fleet and Matt Pickford on row 4. Then it's Russ Lyndsay and Alex Miller, Jim Hart and Sam DeHaan, with James Kell, and then our 2 non-finishers from race 1, Patrick Collins and the man himself, Simon Orange. You can see him in the black car with the orange stripes at the tail end of the field, and we'll see what sort of progress he can make. So in race 1 it was Josh Jackson who made the best start, but he was on the outside of row 1 for that one. What happens in race 2? It's a reverse situation by the looks of it, with Jake Bailey getting off the line a little bit better. It's very busy further back in the pack though. That's Patrick Collins alongside Russ Lyndsay as he turns into Paddock Hill Bend. And do they all get through? There's a bit of paint being traded in front, but it's side by side for the race lead, with Jackson on the inside, Bailey on the outside, and Paul Sheard trying to join in the fun as well through the right hand of this. Already is a more competitive race at the front of the field than we saw in the first encounter. On board with Matt Pickford, that's the treble 9 car, and Patrick Collins. He and Simon Orange are both carving their way through the order, so it looks as though Simon might be aiming to prove Anthony right and get up a bit higher than maybe 8th place in the race. We'll wait and see. Up through Surtees, and finally it looks as though Jake Bailey has established himself as the race leader. So the man who started on pole for race 1 but couldn't convert it into a race win has this time got himself out in front early doors. So we have a race on our hands this time around, I think. 2nd place is still going to be Josh Jackson, with 3rd place Paul Sheard, 4th Richard Breland, and 5th for Sam Bailey. So Breland's lost out there on the first lap. He's dropped behind Paul Sheard, and also look behind, the 4th car in that group is George Grant. So that's the teammate car to Paul Sheard, and he is joining right in the battle as well early on in this race. In front of him, side by side and changing positions, are Sam Bailey and Richard Breland, as we're side by side again for the race lead. Jake Bailey on the inside towards Graham Hill Bend, as I kind of suspected might be the case, has not got the pace to pull away at the front of the field, and with the slipstream effect around here especially, that means he's going to have his mirrors full for an awfully long time, I think, of Josh Jackson, our race 1 winner. Up through Surtees and clearways we go again, and into the long right-hander here that ends the lap. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting battle now, because we saw in race 1, although it was actually Jake Bailey, our race leader at the moment, who set the fastest lap in race 1, he couldn't do it on a consistent enough basis to challenge for the race lead. Well, now he's in front, he's struggling to pull away, so this is going to be a really close battle, I think. In fact, the whole field is staying a little bit more tightly packed at the start of this one than they did at the start of the first race of the weekend. Up the hill, up Halewood's Hill that is, towards the right-hander at Druids. This seems to be maybe where Jackson's a bit quicker than Bailey. And if these two keep battling, that could bring in the rest of the cars behind, and they could close up and join in the battle. Back out of Graham Hill Bend, inch perfect for most of the drivers, up to the edge of the curb, but not over it. 1 or 2 further back, running a bit onto the AstroTurf, but they're all pushing on here in the early stages, trying to make the most of the field being so tightly bunched, trying to gain some positions. Through clearways onto the Brabham straight, and out very wide goes the race leader there. That was flirting with disaster for Jake Bailey, and it has hurt his run onto the pit straight, so we'll see whether Josh Jackson is able to mount a challenge. He's been doing that for since lap 1 really, running right out to the edge and over the curb coming out of clearways, which is not a curb that you would usually go anywhere near, but Bailey is really pushing to the limit and was almost over the limit there as he came through the final turn. Right, for 3rd place, this is the battle resumed really for race 1, except in that instance it was for 4th between Paul Sheard and Sam Bailey. Now Paul is 3rd and Sam is 4th, whilst behind them George Grant is maybe starting to fall back into the clutches of his race 1 playmate Simon Fleet. Then next in line is Patrick Collins, who we didn't see much of. He was an early retirement in race 1. Through Left-hander Surtees back up towards Clearways, where we have battle joined again at the head of the field. And out onto the pit straight, it looks to me as though Josh Jackson is really sizing up Jake Bailey here, maybe thinking about making a move into Paddock Hill Bend. Jake thinks that might be the case as well, so as he disappeared from shot, he was taking a defensive line, which has worked for the time being, so he holds on to the race lead. Nice battle up and down the order though. Everywhere you look, there is a race. No one is lonely in this one, are they? They've all got someone to play with. Towards the top of the hill, Sam Bailey there, ahead of Richard Breland and George Grant. This is Patrick Collins. We saw retire with that suspension damage in race 1. Makes his way back out of Druids. He's chasing down Simon Fleet, and then this group of cars in front. Having said that George Grant was falling off the tail of this group, he's immediately proven me wrong and closed right back in onto the tail of the Blink Motorsport number 81 car of Richard Breland. Blink Motorsport, who have won championships in Mazda MX-5 Super Cup in the past. Makes his way back out of Clearways. Alan Henderson, of course, the man who took titles, took a title for the Blink Motorsport team in the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. A couple of years ago now that was. Towards Paddock Hill Bend we go, and they are starting to become a bit detached now, aren't they? This third place battle falling away once more from the lead 2, as was the case yesterday. Only yesterday it was Richard Breland who was able to carve his way through quite early on into that third position. For the time being, he's stuck in 5th, watching the battling in front with interest to see whether he can take advantage of it. Patrick Collins now making his way down towards Graham Hill Bend. This is Paul Sheard making his way towards Surtees. The smiling number 18 car turns its way into the left-hander just up the road from them. This is the battle for the lead. Still Jake Bailey ahead of Josh Jackson. And actually, I have to say, I thought that if Jackson was going to go through, he would have gone through by now. So maybe he's not got that much superior pace over the race leader. They are a little bit more evenly matched maybe than we thought. Collins, as he flashes across the start-finish line down the Brabham Straight, past the pit complex and the race control tower, in towards Paddock Hill Bend again. Back out of Paddock Hill Bend go the leading groups, and less than a car length still separates Jake Bailey and Josh Jackson, but a bit like we saw with Sam Bailey and Paul Sheard in race 1, it isn't that easy to overtake around here, and as long as the car you're trying to overtake knows how to defend without holding themselves up, which seems to be the case here for Jake Bailey, then Josh Jackson is always going to have a tough time finding a way through. His best bet, I guess, is just to sit on the rear bumper of the race leader and hope that you can pressure him into making a mistake, but that's not happened so far. And certainly Sam Bailey, well, he's going to be sick and tired of staring at the back of Paul Sheard's car, isn't he? He spent the entirety of race 1 looking at it and unable to find a way past it. And already in the first third of this second race, it's the same story, isn't it? He's right with him. He's as quick, if not a bit quicker, but Paul Sheard knows how to defend and knows how to hang on to a position. Add into that the fact that Sam Bailey's also now under pressure from the 2 cars behind, so he's trying to attack and defend at the same time. George Grant there having a little peek to the outside, whilst back on board with Patrick Collins. We can see that he is just inching his way onto the tail of Simon Fleet, I would say. So Simon may have to start getting his elbows out pretty soon to hold on to what is 7th position. Patrick Collins, this isn't a bad drive from the back of the grid, 14th on the grid after a non-finish in race 1. Turning his way back up through Surtees. Clearways and Clark Curve next up. You can see though in his mirror he's got cars closing in as well, and that one of them is Simon Orange, who was his fellow tail end starter. One of the white cars, either Alex Miller or Jim Hart, next in line behind him. Lead us back through Paddock Hill Bend. Any change for 3rd place? No, still Paul Sheard leading the way, and again they just started to break clear slightly now maybe of George Grant, but then as these two start getting a bit touchy-feely with each other again at Druids, that will hold the whole field up and allow George to close back in. Back with the next 2 cars very briefly, and then we follow the race leaders out of Graham Hill Bend. Ooh, George Grant out over the AstroTurf coming out of Graham Hill Bend, but a couple of times actually doesn't need to be careful, otherwise he runs the risk of getting penalised for exceeding track limits. towards clearways. Paul Sheard's car, well, it looked very tight. Oh, off wide there. That was Sam Bailey. Sam Bailey went wide into the gravel trap, and it's cost him positions. Look, he's lost one to Richard Breland. He's lost another, I'm afraid, to George Grant, and it could be that Simon Fleet, Patrick Collins and everybody else are able to close in as well on the run towards Paddock Hill Bend. Let's see, Fleet is having a look at the inside, and that could be a third place loss maybe for Sam Bailey. Yes, it is. So that's a shame that for Sam. He was running well. He was really, you could sense the frustration though, couldn't he? He'd spent so long today trying to find a way past Paul Sheard to no avail, and eventually, well, he was hoping he'd force a mistake out of Paul, but in the end the mistake came from him. Got a wheel out onto the curb, a bit like we saw Jake Bailey doing early on, didn't we, when he was trying to pull a gap in front of the field, running out onto the curb. But if you run out over the edge of the curb, you get wheels in the gravel, and then the track keeps going right, and you're never going to be able to turn with it. So he ended up getting sucked out into the gravel trap, and now the fight back must begin. There's still about half the race to go though, so there's time for Sam Bailey to pick several places off and maybe get back inside the top 5, but he is now right in the middle of the Simon Fleet and Patrick Collins dice. Up towards Paddock Hill Bend, there you go. And Sam had a little look at the inside there into the braking zone. Is there a gap? Is there a gap? Not quite. What about on the exit of the corner? He's looking again to the inside line, and this time there's an overlap, and Sam Bailey is going to go through. Simon Fleet wanted to close the door but didn't dare move over for fear of making contact and firing himself into the barriers. And so now through goes Sam Bailey. Oh, that's Simon Orange off the road, and it was indeed Alex Miller that he was dicing with. Alex, who himself had a spin at this part of the circuit in race 1. Hence his slightly loaded grid position for this one. Right, back with the leading 2, and Josh Jackson started to mount a serious challenge now onto the tail of the race-long race leader, Jake Bailey, who again does enjoy flirting with danger coming out of clearways and taking that really wide exit, but it does open the door for Bailey to maybe nip up the inside down the pit straight. It didn't happen on this occasion, but Bailey will have seen that happening and might be able to plan for a future attack at that part of the track. Back through Druids again, just drifting a bit wide from the apex there, Jake Bailey. So it does look as though Jake is starting to feel the pressure, and we are only just into the second half of the race. So we have about 9 minutes left of this 20-minute encounter. All 3 races this weekend for the Mazda MX-5 Super Series are 20 minutes in duration. Through clearways they go, and again that wider line taken by the race leader. In theory, you've got less steering lock in the car, so you're not scrumming off as much speed. You can carry a bit more momentum down the pit straight, but you just leave that door open invitingly for the car behind. And again into Paddock Hill Bend, Josh Jackson had a little jink to the inside. Richard Breland, meanwhile, is now the man who is attracting the attention of Paul Sheard. In fact, I think he's gone through. I think, yes, the change for third place behind. So Richard Breland, with a last of the late breakers lunge up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend, has done what Sam Bailey couldn't do in about, well, in total 30 minutes of racing. 20 minutes in race 1 and the first half of race 2. Sam Bailey couldn't get past Paul Sheard, while Richard Breland has done it in a flash. And in fact, he's done it twice, because if you remember, he passed Paul early on in race 1 as well. Paul is back in front now though, so whatever happened at Paddock Hill Bend has been redressed at either Druids or Graham Hill, and so it is back to the status quo now, with Richard Breland stuck behind Paul Sheard. Leaders back across the start-finish line, and Josh Jackson thinking about doing the same thing there to the race leader. But to no avail. Paul Sheard, absolutely no chance of him leaving the door open there on the inside into Paddock Hill Bend. That was the most defensive line we've seen anybody take into the first quarter, I think, so far. And again into Druids, but that shows Paul's experience, because it's not often that you'll find a way past Paul Sheard. Richard Breland did it on the brakes into Paddock Hill Bend. That tells Paul, OK, Richard's quite good on the brakes, I best be extra defensive into the big braking zones. And so that's what he does, and that takes away that opportunity then for Richard to try and have a second go at making the same move. He's now got to think of a plan B to find a way past Paul. Guarantee that we'll see Paul driving defensively every time at Paddock Hill Bend. Oh, bit of shuffling further back. That is Sam Tahan going a lap down to some of the midfield runners. As in front we are, well, we're side by side for third. We're also side by side for fifth. There's a recovering Sam Bailey is going past George Grant. So there is the burgundy coloured car. That's Sam Bailey, and he has now recovered back into the top 5. Has he got time in the remaining 5 minutes or so to close back in on the 3rd place battle that he was a part of before he threw it away into the gravel trap at Clearways? If he can, that will really prove that he's got the pace, but just needs to try and iron out maybe a couple of the little mistakes he's been making. Down the Cooper Straight they go, here in the leading 2, and still Josh Jackson can't prise the door open. He's asking all the right questions of race leader Jake Bailey, but thus far Jake has all of the answers, and he's hugging that white line now across the start-finish line up towards Paddock Hill Bend. Confirmation there that the chasing Jackson has got the fastest lap of the race, as is often the case with the slipstream effect and whatnot. Paddock up towards Druids they go. They were side by side again for 3rd, but I don't think Breland was able to get through because, as I predicted, Paul Sheard is driving ultra defensively now. Graham Hill Bend. That could not have been closer to the edge of the curve there for the race leader. He's definitely feeling the pressure, but as long as he doesn't make a big mistake, I don't think Josh Jackson is sufficiently quick enough to really make a move. I think that... Oh, what was I saying? There is the mistake. As I said it, there was the mistake for Jake Bailey. And, well, there we go then. Josh Jackson's in the race lead, but that was so unfortunate for Jake Bailey. I didn't quite catch that, whether he got a wheel on the grass or just got out onto the dirty side of the road, or maybe just locked up the rear brakes, which is easy to do there. Either way, it doesn't matter. He's lost the race lead, and Josh Jackson has gone through. Well, I really did put the mockers on that, didn't I? I just said that as long as he didn't make a mistake, he'd hold on to the race lead. And what does he do in the very next corner? Makes a mistake and loses the race lead. So Josh Jackson is your new race leader. There is Russ Lyndsay. He's chasing down Jim Hart a bit further down the order. There is our erstwhile race leader, who will be kicking himself in that number 14 car. He was less than 5 minutes from home when he made that mistake. Of course, it's not quite over yet. He could be able to close back in. He'll still just about be getting a bit of a slipstream from the car in front. But we'll have to wait and see whether he's able to close in sufficiently to attack. Back out of Clearways, and rather slowly, I think that is for Jake Bailey. Yeah, look at that. Jake has really fallen back all of a sudden from the race leader. So what's happened there? Jake Bailey, who I just said might have a chance of closing in on the race leader again. Has he made a mistake or has he got an issue? Not too sure, but all of a sudden the gap has shot out from, what, a couple of car lengths to about 4 or 5 seconds. Almost to the point that these two have caught him as well, who are still dicing over 3rd place, Paul Sheard and Richard Breland. Now only about 3 minutes left on the clock. Back down through Graham Hill Bend they go. Just over the edge of the curve, but I don't think they're running quite wide enough there to trigger the pressure pad sensors that have been positioned on the AstroTurf. And if you run over those, then that sends a signal to a camera that is watching. It takes a picture of your car as it runs out over the grass and exceeds the track limits, and that way there's no way that you can argue with the clerk of the course when he tries to give you a time penalty after the race. It's quite an efficient system that's been being used at all of the Motorsport Vision owned circuits, such as Brands Hatch. It really does work. It takes all of the human error out of the equation, rather than having a marshal on a marshal's post who observes cars running out wide over the grass. Well, you can imagine when you've got a whole pack of cars bearing down on you, if 1 or 2 of them run wide, it might be difficult to pinpoint exactly who they were. But with the very efficient pressure pad and camera system, that eliminates that issue altogether. Another lock-up there for Jake Bailey. I wonder whether he's running into some brake issues, because he was under braking into that corner where he had the moment to lost the lead, and it was that part of the circuit where we picked him up going slowly, as if maybe he'd had another moment, because the car certainly seems to be running okay. He's maintaining the gap now to the cars behind, so possibly Jake just running into some slight brake issues towards the end of the race. Tyres shouldn't be an issue. They can run the same set of tyres all weekend, really, and shouldn't lose too much performance. But either way, Jake Bailey's chances of winning the race, unfortunately, have gone by the wayside. Back through Druids for what could be the penultimate time. Goes this fight for 3rd place. About a minute left on the clock, so we might squeeze possibly 2 more laps out of this one. I think we will. Back through Clearways comes this 3rd place squabble again, and you do sense that Richard Breland had his opportunity when he briefly got ahead of Paul Sheard mid-race at Paddock Hill Bend, only for Paul to immediately seize that third place back again. Back towards paddock they go. Defensive line taken by Sheard, outside line taken by Breland. They are being caught by Sam Bailey. Sam Bailey, I don't think he's quite got enough time to get there, but he's definitely lapping quicker than the two cars in front of him. His fastest lap for Sam Bailey, let's have a look, is a 56.3, so about 3/10 quicker than the cars in front, who have changed positions. So Richard Breland has got himself ahead of Paul Sheard, so that serves me right for looking away when I did, didn't it? So Richard Breland's gone through into third place, and now it looks like Paul Sheard could lose another place to Sam Bailey possibly. Last lap board we can see being hung out, so this is the final lap of the race. No change likely inside the top two, but third, fourth and fifth couldn't be much closer as we go through onto the final lap. And it is now Richard Breland who has got himself ahead of Paul Sheard and into a podium position. So Paul won't be too pleased with himself for that. As Graham Hill then goes, the now very comfortable Josh Jackson. He never had this comfortable the lead in race one. It was certainly a more competitive race this time around as a result of Jake making a good start and getting the lead into the first corner. And with a mistake at the final turn here at Clearways, about 4 or 5 laps ago, is what did it and allowed Josh Jackson to come through and take his second victory of the day. The first 2 rounds of the Mazda MX-5 Super Series go the way of Josh Jackson, and he'll aim to try and make it a hat-trick later on. Second place for Jake Bailey, third for Richard Breland, and Paul Sheard will just hang on to that 4th place. But it was a great drive by Sam Bailey to close in, really proved that he had the pace. George Grant is 6th, Simon Fleet is 7th, Patrick Collins is 8th, and Simon Orange drops down to 9th, just ahead of Alex Miller. Then Matt Pickford, Jim Hart, James Kell, Russ Lyndsay, and Sam Dahan, this time around the only driver to fall 1 lap down.
Right, Josh, that's 2 wins in 2 races. Are you going to pull it out for a third?
We're hoping for a third, but we'll have to see. It's tough competition. Jake's really quick, so we'll try our best.
Josh put on a good battle, so he deserved that win. But yeah, fingers crossed for the last race.
So Richard, third and third, that's 2 out of 2. Do you think you're going to do it for a third time?
Yeah, well, I hope I can do better than 3rd place in the last race, but the 2 guys in front of me are mega quick. So it was a good race, I enjoyed it, really good.